Today we're going to discover the color grading tool found in Photoshop's Camera Raw filter. And the great news is it's very easy to use and very effective. You don't want to miss this one. Stay tuned. Hello everyone and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. Today we're going to do some color grading in Photoshop. I want to show you a really cool tool inside of Adobe Camera Raw, the Camera Raw filter. It's called the color grading tool. It's really simple to use. It's very effective. Well, let me just show you how it works. Let's get started. I'll be demonstrating the color grading tool on two different images. We have this one and we also have this one. And after we're done with these two images, I think you're going to have a really good grasp of how the color grading tool works inside of Camera Raw in Photoshop. On both images, I went ahead and duplicated my background layer and labeled them ACR color grading, and I turned them into smart objects just in case we need to go back and retweak things a little bit. So let's go ahead and come up to filter and we'll launch Adobe Camera Raw filter, which is right here. Give that a click and we will launch it. Once the Camera Raw filter opens up, just look for the tab that says color grading and click on that. And you'll find your color grading tools in here. And they're really cool looking, right? We're working with shadows, midtones, and highlights. And this shows you all the adjustments at once here. Or you can also use them separately. Like for instance, shadows. If you click on shadows, you're just going to get a nice big color wheel dealing with shadows, one dealing with midtones and one dealing with highlights. And you can also click to the left of these wheels and get the previous wheel. This one is midtones and this one would be shadows. Now there's another very important set of sliders here that you may not be seeing. See this little triangle here? If you're not seeing the sliders with hue and saturation and luminance, just click this right here and you'll see them. Very important. I like to keep these open up and I think they really help you out. And you'll see why here in a second or two. And then you have this blending and balance sliders. Now, not only can you work with shadows, midtones, and highlights, you can also work with global color grading. And if you click on this icon here, now you're going to see a global color wheel. But we're going to start out with the shadows. Now, let's see how easy this is to use. So we have this color wheel. We have the circle in the center. Usually what I like to do is start out by just taking this and you can drag it all around. And we're working with shadows, so we want to see what kind of color do we want our shadows to be. And I'm thinking maybe a color like this. Now, by the way, if you want to reset this, just double click on the circle and it'll reset it, okay? But anyway, a color somewhere right around there. If you hold your shift key down and drag this circle, you can get more saturation or less saturation. Or if you drag this blue circle around the outer edge of the circle, you can run through the different hues of the shadows. But I don't usually use it that way. What I like to do is come down to these sliders here. And that's why I said make sure your sliders are opened up. Because what I like to do is then take this hue adjustment slider, the saturation and luminance slider, and adjust them separately. So I'll start with the hue. Find the hue that I really like. And I'm thinking maybe right around there. Then I can take the saturation and bring it up more. And then maybe work on the hue again just to make sure I get it to the tint that I like, and I'm thinking maybe there. And then you can either lighten it up with this luminous slider or you can darken it down. So whatever you like. And I might just darken it down slightly. So there's my shadows and I like it. So next I'll go over to my midtones and decide how I want my midtones to be. Now I think I want my midtones to be warmer. Again, you could take this and drag it into the warm tones if you want to. You might say, well, I want them pink, whatever you want. I want them green, probably not green, but I think a little bit on the warmer side, maybe somewhere right around in there. And then I'll come down here and work with this hue and get it looking the way I like it. And maybe right around there looks good. Now, do I want to saturate it more? Do I want to saturate it less? And I'm thinking that's looking pretty good so far. Now I can work with the luminance. I can lighten it up if I want to, or darken it down. Maybe I'll darken it down a little bit. See, if I go darker, it's going to make it more moodier. It'll be a little more happier if I move it to the right. So maybe just darken it down just a slight bit, maybe right around there. Now let's move over to our highlights. And I think I want to warm those highlights up a bit too. So this time I'm just going to take the saturation. Now remember, this is only dealing with highlights. So I'm going to take the saturation and move this to the right. Now, right now it's moving, and you watch the circle move to the right, it's moving into red tones. I'm not really into a red sky, so I'm going to take the hue and shift it more towards the yellow tones and just warm up that sky, like right around there. Now, again, I have a luminance slider, so I can lighten those tones up if I want to, and I might lighten them up just a little wee bit, maybe somewhere around there. Now, you have 2 more sliders here. I told you this was easy, right? 2 more sliders, blending. And generally what I do here is just move them to the right, move them to the left, and see how these colors are all blending with each other. So I can move it to the right, and you can see how they're blending, or move it to the left. And I'll find a nice little point where they look good. And for me, right about there. I just let my eye tell me where it looks good for me, and then I stop. And then you have the balance. You can shift the tones more towards the highlights if you move it to the right. And remember, I picked a warmer tone for the highlights, and the shadows to the left have much cooler tones. But look how I can just tint some of that water out there with a little bit of blue. That's kind of fun. So you can have fun and just play around and adjust it the way you like it. But I think for me at this point, I might let just a slight bit of that blue hit the shadows of the water. Just a tiny wee bit. And just like that, a -2. How about that? Now you have this eye right here. If you click this with your mouse, left click it and hold it down, you'll see the before, and release it, you'll see the after. So you can see how well you're doing. Now, if you want to do an overall global color grading, just click this icon. If I want to take the whole image warmer, I could do that, move it into warm tones, or I could take it into cooler tones by booming it down here, or I could just double click this and set it back. I don't think I'm going to mess with global on this. I think it looks really nice just the way it is. And once I'm happy and satisfied with it, I can go ahead and click OK. And that'll send me right back into Photoshop. Now we can take a look here. Here's my before, and here's my after. Now, there's something you can do in Photoshop, and you can change your blend modes. If you only want to deal with the colors and not the actual luminosity tones of the image, you could come here and change the blend mode from normal to color. But I prefer it in the normal mode, so let me go ahead and put it back in normal. Now, I think I may want this fence a little more in the bluer side of things, so I'm just going to double click on the Camera Raw filter. That'll send me right back into Camera Raw. And let me go ahead to the shadows, and let's bump up that saturation a little bit. I just want a little bit more of that blue saturation in there, and I'm just going to click OK. Now here is the before, and here's the after. I just like that a little better. So remember that smart filter can really help you. That way you don't have to go ahead and do everything all over again. Let's go ahead and move on to our second example, and I have this one of this girl leaning up against a Volkswagen Beetle. And we have this nice Coca-Cola out of focus cooler in the background. It kind of has a nostalgic feel to me, so I thought we could exploit that a little bit more with some color grading. And I've already have this converted to a smart object. We can go ahead and launch our Camera Raw filter, and we will get started. Let's go ahead and open up color grading, and let's jump right into the shadows. Instead of dragging this circle around, I'm going to come right down here to saturation and bump up my saturation, which will make the image overall on the red side of things, which I really don't want. But now I'm going to take my hue slider and shift this. I think I want to keep that sand looking like sand, keep it warm looking. So I think maybe right around there. Do I want to increase its saturation a little bit? Maybe just a little wee bit. Now let's work with the luminance. Do we want to lighten it or darken it? I think I'm going to darken it a little bit, but I'm going to watch her glasses because I don't want her eyes to get too dark up in there. Maybe just a slight darkening. Maybe around there looks good. Now let's move over to midtones. I'm just going to click the circle here, and that'll open up the midtones adjustments. And I'll start dragging the saturation slider over to the right. See how we want to color the midtones now. So let's play with the hue. So I think I want to keep her skin tone looking like skin tone. I don't want it to go pink or magenta or green. I want to keep it on the warmer side of things, so maybe a little sunny right around there I think's good. Do I want more saturation? No, less saturation. Just a little bit of saturation in there. Now we can see, do we want to lighten it up? I don't think so. I think I'm going to darken that down a little bit, the midtones, just a little wee bit. Maybe right there. Now remember, we can click this eye. So I'm going to left click it and hold my mouse down. There's the before and there's the after. So I like the nostalgic look that it's getting. And now let's see what we want to do with the highlights. So let's click on this highlight circle here. And I'll start dragging the saturation for the highlight slider to the right, adding more saturation. Now that's going to add the red hue to the highlights, which is not going to look good in the sky. So let me go more into the bluer side of things, because I think that is where that sky is going to have to sit at to look proper. Maybe somewhere in there. Do I need more saturation? That's probably too much, because it's affecting her nose here and the highlights on her face. So I can't go that much with saturation, so I got to be careful. I'll pull back on this luminance a little bit first, just to take a little bit of that off the face. And now I'll take the saturation and just ease it back a little bit. You know, just trying to get a nice balance there. I don't want too much blue, but I think that's good. And I like that. Let's see. Here's the before and here's the after. And let's try the global. Do we want to do anything with the global? This time I will drag this and just see what I want to do. Do I want to do anything here? Cool the whole thing down a little bit. Let me try that right there. More saturation, less saturation. I don't know. Maybe right around there. And let me change the hue. Okay, because I think that's going to help the sky a little bit. Here is the overall before, and here is the after. The last thing I want to do is adjust the blending and the balance, but you'll notice I don't have my sliders here. That's because I'm in global right now. So all you need to do is click on any of these other icons like shadows, midtones, or highlights. I'm going to click on shadows, and now my blending and balance sliders are back. So let me adjust the blending just to see where it looks the best, and maybe right there. And let's play with the balance. So if I move this to the right, things will get bluer, right? Because I put the blue in the highlights, and things will get warmer if I move this balance to the left. So I just got to find that right balance there. And I think right there, here is the before, and here is the after, and I like it. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and that'll send us right back into Photoshop. So now let's take a look at our before. Here's our before, and here is our after. Now remember, we can change this blending mode from normal to color if we don't want to affect the luminosity values of the image, but we only want to affect the colors themselves. And don't forget also, you have an opacity slider. If you felt your effect was too strong, you can ease back on it with this opacity slider if you felt it was too strong. Now here's a before and here's an after. So if you want more of a subtle color grade, but I want mine up pretty strong, I'm going to take it. I'm just going to take it the whole way up, because sometimes on videos you don't see it as clearly. So I'm going to over exaggerate it a little bit. But here's my before and here is my after. So we have that image, and then we had this one we worked on first. So here's the before on this one, and here is the after. So color grading using the camera raw filter in Photoshop, it's a really fast and quick way of getting color grading done. Hey, if you enjoyed this tutorial today, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe, click that bell notification icon. Then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time, but until then, happy editing.